I was watching anime and I didn't know it was Japanese. I didn't know it was anime. I just knew it was cool cartoons with this kind of nifty art style, lots of big robots, things exploded, and nothing made any sense. Now, that's not a criticism of anime. That's a criticism of the way it was being presented to me, because these weren't really translations. And I've heard people say that these anime were censored because they were, people thought of cartoons back then as something for children. Mm-hmm. And there was an idea that excessive violence or nudity was inappropriate for children, and therefore that needed to be removed from these programs. And it was, generally speaking. But it wasn't just censored. I think it's better to say that it was adapted. Because they would cut these down, and sometimes they would even string 2 or 3 similar-looking series together, intermix footage, create a new storyline, write a new script, and create a whole new show that was an amalgamation, an adaptation of other programs. I think you guys have talked about Robotech before, right? Okay, that's Robotech. A
little bit.
Yeah, Robotech is Macross and 2 other series recut, interspersed, and rewritten to form a whole new storyline. And that's what I grew up on. So you had that kind of weird thing, that kind of adaptation. Then you had weird situations like a cartoon like Transformers, which, okay, so this is odd. Transformers, is it an anime or not? It's based on 2 Japanese toy lines that were brought over here and combined into one and rebranded. The show was written in America, but the animation was done in Japan and South Korea, had a very Japanese vibe to it, was based on Japanese toys, and the show came back on television in Japan.
Oh my gosh.
So, is that anime?
That just bent my brain.
That's like a big question with like Korra too, and like Avatar series. It's not made in Japan, but it has like the sort of anime style. And then people are always just like, is it anime? I'm just kind of like, well,
it's a loving homage.
But a lot of this was actually drawn in Japan and based on Japanese properties, but
so
it was written in America.
Right. That's even more confusing.
Yeah, it's just weird. So you had these kinds of things all come together. Did any of you guys watch any of these kinds of weird early shows like that?
So it's really interesting listening to you talk about it because I was so young at the time that I actually used to mix up Robotech and Transformers.
Oh, wow.
And that was because because in my little brain, I knew both of them were kind of like this not American thing, because I think my parents might have mentioned it, or I could just tell like something was a little different. Mm-hmm. And I was like, well, they both based on robots, and they both have some kind of toy thing. And I used to get them mixed up all the time, which was forever this mark of shame for me later on.
Oh, really?
Because, well, when you're a nerd hanging out with other nerds who are like very specific about every granular piece of information, admitting to not being able to keep things straight, even as a tiny child, was kind of embarrassing.
No one is spared.
Nobody is spared.
Well, we've got to be free to make our mistakes. I mean, that's how we learn. So I'm sorry that you were subjected. And to your credit, Transformers got a little mixed up with that too. There's at least one Transformers character that's actually there's a weird Gundam licensing issue, and it's a Gundam toy that became a Transformer who looks remarkably similar to the fighters, the Veritech fighters in Macross. So
goodness.
Wow. And if I'm getting this right, he might actually have been a Veritech. He may not even have been Gundam, come to think of it. Anyway, I'll maybe I can get you that for the show notes. But he's a neat looking toy. I love him. Used to have him Jetfire. But yeah, so even they got a little mixed up occasionally with strange licensing stuff like that.